Okay, we are live. All right. Welcome, everyone, back to the Think Tank podcast. So I'm Travis. If you're new here, here's what we're doing in one line. We're upgrading how America chooses its leaders so you can finally vote for you, upgrading how people choose their leaders and generally participate in democracy. The system is rigged. Big money and party gatekeepers decide who's electable before you even see the ballot. So we're building something different, citizen owned, no corporate control, where every candidate gets a fair shot and you can actually find leaders who represent you. That's what we're here for. Better choices, your choices. So follow us so you don't miss what's coming. And if you want in on what we're doing, go to hub.futureis.org. Link is in the bio. All right, let's get into it.
Awesome. So, Travis, I was just thinking that, from you to me to everyone watching this, I feel like we're all experiencing the same thing. We're exhausted, and not just by one party and not just by one issue, but by a system that over and over again does not represent us. It doesn't work for us. Yet it keeps telling us that the options that they provide for us are our only choices. So I think that people are ready finally for something different. So are we actually building that something different?
Yeah, absolutely. At least I'm hoping that's the plan that we're working on. Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Uh, and here's what really gets to me, Travis. Uh, just doing a little research, and if you want to get your elected officials' attention, uh, you apparently need anywhere between $5,000 and $50,000. That's according to Axios. And I saw that a top tier event, such as a presidential event, could go up to $1 million a plate. And that's just for a seat at the fundraising table and an ear of your politician. I know that I fall into this, but nearly 60% of Americans can't even cover a simple $1,000 emergency. So already most of us are shut out. So that allows party insiders to set the agenda, big money to buy the access, and it leaves everyone else in a camp of not existing in this world. So how in the world is that representation?
Yeah, it's not. That's the point. System is designed to keep power concentrated, and they don't want you to have the voice. That's how it kind of evolved in the wrong direction. That's why we're here where we're at now, and so we're in a stage where, like, if you want to influence either party, Republican or Democrat, you have to spend 5K to 50K. And then, like, they're not spending any time with the average citizens anymore. There's the few grassroots candidates that we want to be able to showcase and amplify that are doing it that way, but like the majority of these candidates, yeah, they're just going to the biggest donor and listening to them. And because and part of it's not their fault. The system is so stuck on, like, you need millions of dollars just to have a chance to be elected, that it's like they feel like they have no choice. And so it's not just money, it's also the corporate media decides what candidates are serious, and if you don't serve their interest, you're not going to get airtime. That's why we try to encourage independent journalists to be the key for citizens, so they can get a little bit more of an objective information. But other than the independent journalists, these candidates, you could talk to these grassroots candidates. They have a million stories about how they're ousted from the media, cesspool of the establishment media, and all that stuff. So in a nutshell, good candidates get zero visibility unless they actually sell out, and good journalists who tell the truth also get punished for it. So long story short, we're not in a functioning democracy. We're in a gatekeeping system, basically.
That's a great way to say it. So, Travis, if the current system, like you said, locks out the good candidates and silences the independent, more trustworthy media, is the alternative? How do those people build support without compromising their values?
Yeah, so that's really the heart of what we're trying to do here, is build citizen-owned infrastructure, digital infrastructure that connects every candidate, all the independent journalists, movements, even podcasters and influencers, just everyone that's not part of the establishment, part of the status quo, regardless of their political beliefs. We want to plug them all into one overarching system. So right now in phase one, it's the digital politics hub. Citizens are able to plug in journalists that they trust, candidates they believe in, and movements that are actually doing good work. And so we're giving people visibility and organizations visibility, not because some corporation approved them or because somebody gave us money. It's because the real actual voters are vouching for these people, vouching for the journalists, candidates, and so on. So that's the shift that we're trying to bring here, is that, like, instead of waiting for gatekeepers to approve who gets a voice and who doesn't, we're building a platform where the citizens get to make that choice, and the citizens decide who gets lifted higher, who stays lower. And it's all about the people power and people support that these people get, kind of like the way influencers work with like likes and dislikes and all that kind of thing. We want to build that for politicians and other political stakeholders. And doing that and letting those that get the most support, most genuine organic support, rise to the top. That's better deserved attention, because that's voters. It's the voters making a decision before the voting day. They're deciding which ones they like more than others, and then then by election day it starts narrowing down the pool based on who has the most support. And then the voters have a good handful of choices that got narrowed down over time and would actually represent them.
And that makes a lot of sense of how to actually move the needle forward and support the good candidates. And to our audience, we just, really pose the question, don't good candidates deserve better than the current system? Don't journalists who actually tell us the truth deserve better than getting buried and demonetized? And obviously the answer is yes. So if you're just joining us, we are talking about why the current system locks out people who should have the most power. You, me, Travis, everyone watching this, and what we're building as the alternative to the rigged system. So let's keep this conversation going. Travis, let's talk about media for a second. We're all feeling it. Corporate media is absolutely failing us. They profit from our outrage, not information. And it might appear that there are hundreds of options to where to get your news, but in reality, it's just a handful of companies at the very top deciding what gets put in front of you. So they platform the loudest, most extreme voices instead of the most useful ones. And don't we deserve media that actually serves us rather than just panders to the ones at the top?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so it's really it's the structural problem from the media perspective. It's a business model problem. Corporate media doesn't get paid to inform you; they get paid for you to keep clicking. And in order to do that, they need the drama, they need the extremes, they need your adrenaline rushing and fear tactics and division. That's their product. You're not even the customer. The advertisers are the customer. You're the product they're giving to the advertisers. That's how they're making their money. You're just a product to them. And they know, all the statistics are showing that you'll give more attention the more they stir things up and make you feel a lot of negative emotions by exaggerating or playing with the truth. And then then plugging in with candidates, they are deciding who's viable. And again, before we even know who's running in a primary, the candidates, the media knows who they're going to want to push in the front. They know who they want to bury in the back. And so most of the time media has their left and right leanings, but they're gonna filter which Democrats they like, which Republicans they like. Oh no, this one's too anti-status quo. Oh, this one's gonna, I don't like what this guy's gonna talk about. I don't like, these people. Basically, it's like, oh no, they represent the majority instead of me, the millionaire, news anchor or media head. And so, again, you can ask so many people that have ran as grassroots candidates. This happens constantly to them, that they're completely ousted. They're not even acknowledged as being in the race a lot of times, especially like third party independents. And so it's, so it's really the independent media is what does the good work that is already in existence. And that's also why younger people are turning to independent media, podcasters, independent journalists. Their goal is to give you a more objective reality. It's not 100%, it's not perfect, but there's significantly, I mean, almost nowhere in establishment media are you going to get this objective truth. At least with journalists, you have a chance of getting these more objective truths. Everyone's going to have their biases and limited knowledge of the full reality, but their intention is more pure most of the time than the establishment media. And so these days, it's really the journalists and podcasters are giving airtime to better candidates, and the ones that are getting ousted elsewhere, they're the ones that are trying to lift these people up. And so that's also part of why we want to incorporate independent media in what we're building. Most movements don't see political commentators and journalists as part of the political system, but we do. They're essential to the political system. I mean, the political machine, the Democrat and Republican establishment sure as hell are in bed with the media and make sure that they're pumping out the guys that they like. And it just, we need to have a grassroots equivalent to that. And so, independent journalists and independent media in general is that decentralized, democratized way of giving people more voices, more perspectives, more competition within journalism. And so we're just looking to connect them, build a better infrastructure that amplifies their voice, builds a system that's accountable to the citizens. You decide if the journalist is giving false information. You decide if they're too partisan or to this or to that. So that's the kind of tools that we want to build. Think is not doing the gatekeeping. We're not going to say that journalist is good, that journalist is bad. No, we're going to build the tools that citizens can make these decisions themselves. And so, right now, good journalists are not being supported by the current system. And so we are building a better system that will encourage, that will support them, support the work they're doing, as well as, candidates and everyone that's actually doing good work.
Yeah, and before we get into the how of what you're talking about, what we're building, I really enjoyed the business model aspect of it, and who gets the news, who gets on the news is really a return on investment in the corporate nature of media today. So that was a great analogy. So these quality voices, these good journalists, they're out there, but they're so isolated. And, it's easy to silence them in this current system that we have. So how are we actually changing that?
Yeah. So, what we're doing right now is connecting them. So right now, the Digital Politics Hub is part of phase 1. We want to plug in the independent journalists, other media voices. We're building this digital politics network. Everyone, regardless of where they land politically, we want everyone that wants a true democracy, want to actually be empowered as a citizen and overcome this concentration of power. We're plugging them into our hub. So right now the hub is more of like a coordination hub and an awareness hub to build out that network. We want to connect the journalists, the podcasters, we want to connect the good candidates, good movements, just everyone that wants to build this with us. Phase 2 is digital democracy and putting this all together from scratch, like technology from scratch. But first, we want to line up the right people. We want citizens to have the oversight there. We want journalists to have their feedback, movements to have their feedback. What would help them be more empowered? How do they build better trust networks? Things like that. So each category of like stakeholders that are involved in politics, we want to build a section for them that empowers them, amplifies them, but then also holds them accountable to the American people. And so that's why it's a 2-phase approach. So right now it's just about gathering the people, gaining their feedback, getting their initial thoughts on different issues that we're addressing. How would this system work better for them? Make a system that's just user-friendly, easier, streamlined. The current system is just so messy. It's all over the place. It takes hours and hours to research a candidate. We want to have just a one-stop shop. Everything is one place. Everything that you need is all in all the different tools are in one toolbox essentially. So in the sense of media, when independent voices are connected into a larger network, it's much harder to silence them. They're right now they're getting demonetized, like on YouTube and other networks, and their stories are constantly being suppressed wherever they go. So this is a system that would guarantee they don't get suppressed. The only way they get suppressed is if like thousands of citizens keep downvoting them and not like and finding that their information is wrong, is misinformation and all those kinds of things. But even that, we're going to build a whole system where even our own people biases, there's ways to, like, you have to be sure that this person is factually incorrect and not just saying something that you don't like. There's a big difference there. But so we plug them in, and then we want to amplify based on trust and track record and not ad revenue. It's not like it's not like $2,000 can get us to show somebody, but like 2,000 citizens saying they like something, that's merit. So that's kind of the idea. It's all about people power being applied to raise these people in the media.
That's really powerful, Travis, what you just said, because it really incorporates the transition from how do we take that power out of the few, out of their hands, and put it, rightfully so, back in the hands of the people, and giving them the power to uplift and amplify voices that they trust. And again, we're posing this question of, aren't we all just so tired as a nation of watching good journalists get buried while sensationalism and kind of this feeding off of negative emotions gets rewarded? We can absolutely do better than that. And I think, probably our parents and grandparents have a memory of good journalism being part of politics, but I know that I'm a millennial, and I'm pretty sure Gen Z feels the same way. That is completely out of our reality right now.
Totally.
So a quick reset. What we're talking about today is building real alternatives to the broken system of today that profits from keeping you powerless. And that is the Digital Politics Hub, where that is happening right now. It is at hub.futureis.org. So let's bring this conversation home about what we're building. So Travis, the 2026 midterms are coming up super fast. And I think everyone watching knows, what the game plan is. It's going to be the same cycle, same outrage, same lack of accountability, and the same disappointments. But here is an honest question to those watching. Are you willing to go through that again? Or are you ready to actually step into something that is different and actually produces a system where representation belongs to you, not just a select few?
Yeah, so this is really a big decision point for America. We need to get past playing the old game, voting for whoever the party tells you, hoping they keep their promises, watch them break those promises, get frustrated. It's already trending that there are going to be a lot of people voting against Trump. They're not voting for Democrats, they're voting against Trump. Which some of you guys might think that's good enough, and maybe it is for now. That's for you to decide. I'm not gonna decide that for you. But the key is, when do we get past like lesser two evils and good enough and gradualism, and we need something better. Just going before Trump is not good enough, and it would just create more disasters. That like we always say, for those that don't like Trump, he's a symptom of the problem, not the problem itself. And so there's some band-aids. We're trying to make the fixes at the core, and it's enough with the band-aids. So stepping into what we're building, is really plugging into the hub, joining this building of a new infrastructure, a new system, that builds a fair stage. That's ultimately what we're trying to do, is build a fair stage, again, where independent journalists have a chance, The better candidates have a chance, Democrat, Republican, and third party, independent. We're not even saying it's a specific, it has to be outside the two parties. It just has to be better candidates. It can be better Democrats, better Republicans. That's still a better system rather than the status quo of everything, because everything is still getting worse. Most people don't feel like, the world is never, the American dream started, pretty much died around like 2008, the Great Recession, and most people feel like it's never recovered since. And so, we could keep putting band-aids on things, or we could address the system itself that's causing this problem. The gatekeepers, the money in politics, that's what's causing the problem. We can build another system, and it doesn't require new legislation. It's all technology and framing a new space for people to be on. If you have a new system of a level playing field that helps you choose who you want to vote for instead of the establishment media and the party leaders, that changes everything. We don't need to make legislative changes right now. We just need to make better voting decisions for ourselves, and we keep getting manipulated. We get the fear tactics. You're wasting your vote if you vote for this person, that person. We're building a system where you'll know if you're going to waste your vote. You'll know if your ideal candidate can stand a chance, can actually win in the general, or if it might be a waste of vote. We're building systems for you to actually be able to determine that yourself. It might be in this one race, the third party candidate, there's no chance in hell that they're going to be able to beat the establishment Democrat or Republican. But then in a different race, you'll be like, hey, they're really trending. They're getting a lot of voter support and grassroots funding, and they really can stand a chance. So you'll know if you want to, quote unquote, gamble your vote on the person you actually like rather than the lesser of two evils. But we need the people involved. What we're building is real. It's happening right now, really in two places. It's the digital politics hub that we're talking about. That's where you take actions. You can share your story, what's broken for you about the system, what you care about, what you're tired of. And then you could plug in, candidates that you like, journalists that you trust, movements that you like. We're looking for those that are really looking outside the box. They're not just playing the same two box game. A lot of movements, they seem great at first, but when you dig in, they're just as happy to keep the status quo. They might want some change, but they want to keep those who are in power to stay in power and things like that. We want those that want more, want better than that. The ones that acknowledge that, right now, for the first time in modern history, more people are independent than Democrat or Republican. That's like pretty much never happened, at least not in our lifetime. And, like trust in media, trust in parties, all-time low in both parties. So the time is now. People desperately want change. And what we're talking about is organizing what that would look like. There's tons of independents, and independents want different things. They're not going to be put in one box. So we're building infrastructure that can handle that complexity, where a citizen can say, I stand on this side on one issue, this is where I stand on a different issue, and you can mix and match where you stand on things. And then candidates can actually shape their policies based on what the majority of their district wants. That's ultimately what we envision, is where a candidate shapes their policies around the people rather than the parties dictating, this is what you are. You're a Democrat, this is where you stand. You're a Republican, these are the policies you follow. And there's no wiggle room. It doesn't matter if the citizens want it or not. This is what you're doing because the establishment approved it. We're still getting our special interests and big donor money. So you're allowed to talk about this. You're allowed to push this and that. And this is what you can't push. We're done. People are done with that. They want the difference. And there are candidates that want to represent you genuinely, and they're just shut out of the current system. So what's the answer? Build a new system. If they're being shut out of the old system, build a system they're not shut out in. Instead of, the media blacks them out, the establishment media blacks them out, we're going to give them independent media instead. And, the candidates, are not allowed on debate stages half the time. Well, we're going to build our own virtual debate stages and virtual town halls and all these different tools. So again, we need the people power. We want your feedback. We want your ideas. There might be more ideas that you feed in, different features that you want. What's unique about this is it's adaptable. We'll evolve with like what America wants, what ideas, what tools can we create that will help America. So you would be part of shaping it. That's why we call citizens that join or citizen architects. You're actually architecting this vision with us. So again, the Digital Politics Hub is where you take the actions, plug in journalists. You could do micro actions to just build out this network, gain the people power. And then our Discord is where you find your people. We're building community there where, it's not just left versus right. It's not the typical fighting games that we're constantly playing and not getting anywhere. We're talking about a new system done with the partisan game. Let's talk about how to build a fair system that actually represents you, that actually gives accountability when candidates don't fulfill their promises. There needs to be consequences. That's not happening right now. That's the kind of stuff that we want to build a community off of, about true representation, understanding that there's a concentration of power. It's both parties. We could fight all forever nonstop about which one's the lesser evil. That's not going to get us anywhere. Let's just agree that they're both in the evil category, and we deserve and need something better. And so that's what we're building today. And then we have a vision for phase 2, which I'm not going to get into right now, but that's this. Once we develop the people power, then we're going to get into phase 2, which is digital democracy, basically building everything that we talk about, everything we share, all the features that citizens want. We're going to build everything from the bottom up. Some tools are offered now, some tools will happen later.
Yeah, and that transition from phase 1 to phase 2 is all about that people power. And what Travis is talking about is, how do we keep the power with the people, not with the media, not with the party gatekeepers, and not with the political elite. You decide who you trust and who you want to promote. With micro actions, we give you, effective but small, doable actions on how to amplify those voices. And again, it's about the relationship between you and the politician. They want to hear what your thoughts are. They want to hear what your demands are, instead of this top-down, party elites telling you what you have to vote for. So that's all about keeping that power with the people. So, Travis, if someone is watching right now and they're really agreeing with the need for people power, the need for a better system, what is the first step that they could take part of?
Yeah, so definitely going to visiting the Digital Politics Hub, hub.futureis.org. Become a citizen architect. It's not just a title we're handing out. It's a commitment that you get involved in. You're basically saying, I'm done waiting for the system to fix itself. I'm done waiting for the leaders to fix their own system, to put a lock on their own cage. And you're going to actually help build an alternative system that's citizen owned, empowers the people and not the concentration. 2, you could share your story. That's another section on the hub. Plug in the voices you trust, show up on our Discord, and meet the people that are building this alongside you. There's a lot of disaffected voters. There's a lot of people, like we said, like all the numbers are coming out this year that there's more people independent. First, there's just more people identify as independent. Now registration numbers, like in Nevada and a lot of other states, are actually showing that they're literally registered more independent than the other two parties, which has never happened in modern history. So there's so many people that want change, and the system, those in power, are going to resist that change. So we need to build a system that goes across political beliefs, interconnects all of us that want true representation. We'll sort out our differences. Yes, we're not all going to agree on issues. We're going to fight on most issues. There's going to be a long, arduous process, and once the granular is in there. But the key is having better candidates with better intentions that are not going to lie. They're going to actually try to fulfill their promises, and they're not going to be beholden to a concentration of power and special interests. So we're not asking you to wait, we're asking you to build. And there's actions you could start right now. Do something different. This is different than anything any other movement's building. If you like another movement, they're not competition. There's something we want to plug into and plug them into this new infrastructure. So it's, we're not competing with anyone. We're just connecting people and systems.
That's a great way to phrase it. And to touch on what Travis is talking about, those numbers rolling out, you know, Travis is not the only one seeing those numbers. The party gatekeepers, the political elite, they see that they're losing voters at an astonishing rate. I don't know about you guys, but I have not seen them have any fear of that. They haven't changed their strategy. They're not doing better. They're not waking up and saying, oh gosh, the voters want different. I have to act different. So that should anger a lot of people. And so that is exactly why we're building this alternative system, because the current system is not reactive to what you want, and I don't think ever will be. Um, so yeah, so to close us out, here's what I know. I want to be able to do more than just go to my local ballot box, vote, and hold my breath and cross my fingers. So if you're tired of a system that simply feeds off of your energy but gives you absolutely nothing in return, what we at Think are building, uh, we have a bold mission, and we are not saving it for simply a rainy day. Like Travis said, we are inviting you into this movement today. And the hub is where your voice can turn into action. Like Travis said, Discord is the community space for that, is where you find your people, is where you have more uplifting and moving the needle forward conversations than what you're currently having on social media. So the question is, are you guys in? So Travis, what happens when enough people answer yes to that question?
Yeah, so really this grows exponentially. Like we just need to reach a certain level of momentum and get the word out the right way, and then this is going to go viral. There's so many people that are in pain, they want change, they're not feeling like anyone else has a solution out there. And we've been talking directly with thousands of people. Several thousand are visiting our website on a regular basis now. People want change, and this is the way to do it. And it's a way of, like, because we're not saying like, this is exactly what has to happen in the future. No, we're building infrastructure that you choose how it shapes. We're not saying like, oh, this is how healthcare goes and this is how immigration should go. No, that's up to you. We just want to build the infrastructure that actually empowers you to make those decisions. So when enough people start joining us, it grows exponentially very quickly, because most of what we're doing is digital. So we're going to actually move with the digital age. Most activism that happens right now is in person, and not that we want that to stop, but there's a key way to use digital activism and create change digitally that can happen so much faster and grow exponentially. And so, once we have enough people joining the hub, working out these ways to own accountability, own visibility, and start building our own infrastructure, we could stop begging the old system to change, and we could start replacing it. As soon as we have a large number of people, like, that's a voting block. That is influence. Once we're showing, hey, look at the demand for something different. We're building something different, pooling disaffected voters in, pooling independent people in, but third parties, everyone, again, even Democrat and Republicans that just want change within their own party. We're pulling all these people in, people without political homes, and building infrastructure that works out their differences, finds where the common goals are, and who's going to be electable. And again, it's all with you guys making these decisions yourself, just building structure so it's not chaotic like it is today. So help us build this digital politics network, this change, this let's get these thousands of people into the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands to get involved. It's very possible that we can grow this exponentially and actually have a pretty strong influence by the midterms. It's tight right now. It all depends on you, your actions, and getting some form of involvement. Most of what we're talking about is like 5 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week. Like, that's what a micro action is. Very small acts of help that you can find on our website or on a hub specifically. So it literally all starts with you. And yep, so check us out. Go to hub.futures.org. We'll see you next Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Join the hub, join our Discord, both are the key pieces. We're still kind of we're still building the early stage of them, but they'll be done by the first week of March. So joining our Discord, you'll be one of the earlier joiners, as we're finishing the revamp of our Discord, and the hub's pretty much there, just getting structured as well. So there's going to be a lot of improvements just in the next couple weeks, and then by the first week of March, we're ready to go full throttle of going public and talking to different people. We're already talking to a lot of different movements right now, and a couple candidates, and we're going to scale that up in March. So be one of the earlier people to join, help shape it. We need your feedback. There's going to be a lot of polling and ways that your voice gets heard, your voice gets amplified on the system. So we'll see you on the hub. And then, yeah, so let's upgrade democracy. I'll see you next week.